Hey, what's going on, guys? What's happening? You guys have tuned in to Rules for Rebels. Today is Thursday, January 26, 2023. We have a lot of news to cover in today's story. We're going to be talking about the markets yesterday. We have a number of interesting e-commerce stories. It recently came out that PayPal users' accounts were hacked, revealing their names, addresses, emails, and even social security numbers and date of birth, as well as tax IDs. This happened between December 6th and December 8th. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Shopify is raising their fees for the first time in 10 or 12 years, and it's a pretty hefty increase, like 34% increase. There's a problem with eBay verifying people's bank accounts, payments, a industry payment website pegs inflation at 13.5%, not the 7% or whatever it is that the Fed tells us, and more layoffs to talk about as well. So let's talk about all that stuff in today's video. As I've been doing, I've been giving you guys a lot of recommendations for documentaries, movies, YouTube channels, etc. Interesting new Netflix documentary. It's called The Pez Outlaw. Basically, back in the, I don't know if it was the 70s or 80s, this guy, the guy was like us, right? Like, the guy was a weirdo. He was from Michigan, had a big beard, but he was a hustler, right? He got into collecting cereal boxes, and he found like kind of a gimmick where he could kind of game the system and get all these toys. And he was working in a machine shop. He was a poor guy, but he found a way to kind of create all these side hustles. And what's even more interesting about this, he did this before the internet. So there was no eBay, there was no Facebook Marketplace, but he wound up managing to kind of, he was always looking for an angle. He would find side hustles to make money, and that's kind of how he fell into the Pez thing. Basically, he was traveling over to Europe, and, this isn't today's Europe. This is Europe, right after the wall came down in Germany. Like, things were a lot more dangerous. I guess there was like a genocide going on in Croatia. It was just kind of a much crazier time. And he was going over to, I think it was Slovakia or Slovenia, but he was going to the Pez factory, buying Pez's, and then smuggling the Pez's back into the U.S. Obviously, there's a lot of different collectors markets, but there is a small community of people who are like obsessed with Pez. And actually, a buddy of mine has his mom has over 10,000 Pez's. She has like a whole room dedicated to Pez with displays and things like that. So there's a big collector's market. This guy started making a ton of money, and the movie's kind of about him and his battle with Pez and the CEO of Pez, because technically he shouldn't have been importing or bringing these Pez's into the U.S., but Pez had never registered their trademark with Customs and Border Protection, which is kind of a loophole that allowed him to do it. He later somehow went on to create his own line of official Pez, and then the CEO kind of tanked that plan. So really interesting documentary, really interesting guy. It's called The Pez Outlaw on Netflix, and I think it was trending top 10 on Netflix yesterday. But let's get into today's news, right? So yesterday the Dow was up slightly, NASDAQ was down a little under 6%, S&P 500 down slightly. Most top cryptos were down about 2 to 5% yesterday. Bitcoin down yesterday, although Bitcoin is up almost 12% on the 7-day chart. Let's get into some of these e-commerce stories. So I kind of covered most of this one, but PayPal recently revealed that they had 35,000 customer accounts that had been hacked through credential stuffing. This exposed customers' names, addresses, emails, social security numbers, date of birth, and tax ID numbers. And again, this breach happened between December 6th and December 8th. Sucks for those 35,000 people. 35,000 people is a lot of people. When you look at how many millions or tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of PayPal accounts that are out there, it sounds like it's a relatively small percentage of users. So we got some big news in Shopify. I know a lot of you guys are Shopify sellers. Shopify is raising their fees for the first time in I think it's 10 or 12 years. The basic plan, which has always been $29, is going to go to $39. That's a 34% increase. Shopify, of course, is blaming inflation. Supposedly we're being told inflation's at, 7.1% or something like that. Shopify's hiking 34%. The fee hike for a basic plan turns from being $348 per year to $468 per year. The regular Shopify goes from $79 to $105 a month. That is also a 33% increase. And Shopify Advanced goes from $299 a month to $399 a month, which is a 33% increase. The higher fees go into effect immediately. This isn't something where, March 1st we're going to be raising fees. This goes into effect immediately. And Shopify said that they need to change the pricing in order to not change the value of their products. Lots of people on this article were commentating that I've never bought anything on Shopify and I never will. People obviously don't realize that Shopify isn't like eBay or Amazon. Shopify helps people build and power independent e-commerce websites. So it's very possible a lot of these people are just clueless and probably have made a lot of purchases off individual sellers' Shopify accounts, but they think Shopify is like some entity who you purchase from. What is your guys' take on this? Obviously, people online are upset, and just to kind of play devil's advocate or put both sides out there, if you are running a business and $10 a month is going to tank your business, you probably don't have a hugely successful business in the first place. However, that said, Shopify is not just a $29 a month or $39 a month plan. One of my clients whose Shopify account I manage for him, we probably pay between $5,000 and $9,000 a month when you look at all the apps, all the developer fees that we pay. Shopify isn't as simple as just $29 a month and you're done. Shopify is as much an app store for developers to sell apps to Shopify store owners as it is an e-commerce platform. And I think Shopify purposely leaves out a lot of very basic featuring that should be included in a dedicated e-commerce website because they want you to have to buy an app. For example, you should be able to run a sale without having to buy and pay for a special app to do so. Shopify allows you to do coupon codes, but there's no banners, there's no automatic discounts, or I should say you can only do one automatic discount at a time. Shopify doesn't have the ability to do gifts and gold type deals. Their BOGO deals kind of suck. So I wind up having to use ultimate special offers for all my stores. It's $20 a month. It can be a little bit glitchy sometimes. So that is one fair criticism of Shopify. But what do you guys think about this recent price increase? The whole e-commerce space is interesting because years ago, everybody wanted to own and control their own website. And, maybe 10 years ago, there was this kind of shift where now, people don't want to deal with all the hassles of owning and securing a website. Let Shopify handle all that, and I'll just pay them a monthly fee. But when you when you get another third party involved in your business, they can change things and they can tank your business, and that's kind of out of your control. So that's one of the negatives of Shopify. Got an eBay story. So apparently a lot of eBay sellers have been realizing when trying to verify their bank accounts that they can't verify their bank account. Well, it turns out that eBay blackballs certain banks, but they won't tell customers what banks these are. So somebody tries to verify a bank, it won't work. So then eBay tells them, you got to go get another bank account. They go to another bank, get another bank account, come back. They still can't verify. So eBay blocks certain banks or blackballs certain banks, but won't tell you what banks these are. And I guess right now it's affecting a lot of customers in Georgia. There's kind of an industry magazine website called Payments, Pymnts, and it's kind of different news and stories and kind of new developments and new features in the payments industry. They recently did a study. Obviously, they have a lot of insight into consumer behavior and payment data and things like that. They said that inflation isn't coming down anytime soon, and they said that the actual inflation rate is 13.5%. Not the 7.1% or whatever it is that the Fed tells us. The other day it was announced that Biden and the White House are rolling out new renter protections. A lot of people are questioning, does he have the power to do this? Rents aren't interstate commerce unless a house is on the border of two states. I guess what they're trying to do is offer grace periods for late rent. Anybody facing evictions gets free legal counsel. And they're going to try to curb rent increases. If you look at cities that have rent controls like New York and a lot of areas of California, these are some of the most expensive areas in the country. I don't know why everybody wants to do rent control. Study after study after study shows that rent control just winds up causing rents to be worse. But Biden's pressing along with this plan anyway. Be interesting to see what happens with that, but it's kind of still, right now in Los Angeles County, we still have people who have not paid rent since eviction moratoriums were first put in place way back in 2020, and we want to offer more protections to renters. I'm not going to say too much about this story because A, I don't really love the source of the story, and B, this is a topic that YouTube wouldn't like us talking about, and that's another interesting thing, right? I obviously kind of talk in code, and there's certain things that I say, go research this yourself. I can't say this on YouTube. And it's amazing how many other, even mainstream, I'm a weirdo conspiracy guy, whatever. But it's amazing even how many mainstream YouTube channels talk in code or say you have to head over to my Rumble to get the full story because, people, this is like Soviet Russia, right? Like nobody is allowed to really say things. We have to be very careful with what we say. We don't want to be shadow banned. We don't want to be kicked off. But I guess on Twitter last night, a video dropped from a source called Project V. Not going to say the full word. Basically, it was an employee of a pharmaceutical company, Jordan Tristan Walker, and he was caught on, secret camera, spy camera, essentially saying that this company wanted to mutate, they wanted to mutate the beer themselves in a lab so that they could then roll out more of their products to combat this thing that they mutated on their own. Essentially, if this winds up turning out to be true, essentially, they're going to genocide the U.S. All for bigger profits for themselves. Pretty sick. I'm just going to leave it at that because we really can't say too much more. There was an article from DN, I think the source is called DNews, DNYUZ. It was titled Laid Off in Your Living Room. It's kind of interesting, worth a read. It talks about the chaos of remote job cuts. Remote workers laid off. Okay, so a lot of remote workers so a lot of people are being laid off, period. Being that, 35% of all workers are remote workers, a lot of people being laid off are being laid off from their home. And remote work is kind of a weird concept to begin with, right? Like, especially I've talked about this before. Imagine you're a fresh graduate coming out of college. Your work experience has been retail jobs. One of the things that I thought was cool about my first job in an office, it was weird being treated like an adult as opposed to being treated like a child, like you typically are at like retail jobs or restaurant jobs. At previous jobs, I'd work retail jobs. You come back from your lunch break 1 minute late and you're being written up, right? Like you're told when you can eat, how long of a break you can take, when you can go to the bathroom. So it was really weird going into an office and actually kind of being treated with some respect and being treated like an adult. And I didn't really know like how you're supposed to act in an office or in a professional job. And you kind of pick that up from watching the people around you. Well, if you come straight out of college and you don't have any interaction with your coworkers and you're working from home, it's kind of weird. And there's almost kind of this like derealization thing where you're like, I'm spending 8 hours of my day logged into this computer working for this company, but I've never been to the office. They sent me a laptop and a mail. I've never met my coworkers. Like, it's almost just kind of a mindfuck, right? And so imagine being laid off, and it's like you wake up one morning to start work, and you can't get into your email. You can't get into any of the systems. You really can't reach out to your coworkers because if you don't have their personal phone numbers or personal emails, you connect with them through maybe an internal messaging system or through the company's email. And so you're just kind of like, I lost my job. I can't talk to any of my coworkers to find out, like, did they lose their job? What are they going to do? I don't have any resources. And so people said that they found this to be very isolating. And so, I think kind of the lesson to be learned here is whatever you have at your work that you want to keep, maybe there's some examples of projects that you've worked on that you want to use for a future portfolio. Either for yourself or trying to find a new job. Like, you better get that stuff off of the work computer because you never know if you could wind up being locked out of the work computer. If there's some colleagues of yours that you want to stay in touch with, you better get their contact info, their personal non-work contact info now, because what would happen if you were locked out of your computer tomorrow morning? I guess the point being, every day when you sign out of work or when you leave work, whatever you wouldn't want to lose, make sure that you've backed up or saved that information yourself. It's come out, I think it's not going to be announced until February 5th, but IBM is laying off 2,500 workers. Some other layoffs we have for yesterday were Luno laid off 330 workers. That's 35% of the company. Clear Capital laid off 250 workers. That's 25% of the company. Guardant Health, 130 laid off 7% of the company. Syrian Labs laid off 130. That's 15% of the company. Tier Mobility laid off 80 people. Process laid off 30% of the company. Microsoft and Amazon together, we've already discussed these layoffs, but Microsoft and Amazon combined recently laid off 28,000 tech workers. And I have seen some articles saying, look, the layoffs in tech, it seems like there's a ton of them. It seems really bad. But just for context, it may look terrible. But it's really just a pullback from the past couple years of crazy hiring. And there is some truth to that. A lot of the big tech companies out there, 30% of their company they've picked up in the last year, 18 months, 2 years. So they hired too quickly and, now there's a downturn and they got to get rid of some people. Recently came out that Walmart is raising their company minimum wage from $12 to $15 per hour. That has nothing to do with like the federal minimum wage or state minimum wages. That's just something they're doing internally. I don't think they're doing it to be nice. I think they're doing it because they have to compete. Nobody's willing to work for $12 an hour anymore, especially with this inflation. And when you look at Amazon starting people at $18 or $20 per hour, if Walmart hopes to get any employees, they're going to have to do better than $12 an hour. So we talked about California yesterday wanting to put their wealth tax of 1.5% on billionaires and then later millionaires 2 years down the road. California voters next year will vote on a referendum that would make fast food minimum wage specifically $22 an hour. The rest of pretty much every industry besides fast food would keep a minimum wage of $15.50. It's really weird. Like, why are we purposely picking out? Fast food workers deserve $22 an hour, but a guy who's doing landscaping, he only deserves $15.50. Why are we singling out this industry? Critics say that it's unfair to the fast food industry, and they're also saying that for every 20% increase in wages, there'll be a 7% increase in food prices for customers. I saw a really stupid CNBC article the other day. CNBC typically puts out pretty stupid articles. I think the term side hustle has really been bastardized, right? Like a side hustle is starting your own small business on the side, at least in my opinion. Now, side hustle at this point is a buzzword. People think that driving for Uber is a side hustle. People think that delivering pizzas is a side hustle. A side hustle to me is starting your own thing. But CNBC did an article. Here are 5 side hustles that pay over $100,000 a year. You want to hear what their side hustles are? UX design, game development, app development, coding, and website development. These are in my opinion, these are careers. These are highly skilled things that somebody can't just jump into overnight. This isn't like going to Goodwill, buying a few things and selling them on eBay. Like these things in my mind aren't side hustles, but it just kind of goes to show that the term side hustle has really been kind of bastardized. CNBC article, Americans are short on savings. According to SecureSave.com, 74% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. In a healthy economy, do you have 3/4 of the population living paycheck to paycheck? And, just a few weeks ago, we were hearing a lot of articles saying that 68% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, but apparently now it is up to 74%. We always hear about how many Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. Well, now 67% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. The savings rate is now 2.2%. For the first time, it's fallen to below levels before we started giving out stimulus and unemployment and things like that before the beer cough. And what are these people going to do when they have no savings? They're going to turn to their credit cards, where they're going to be paying anywhere between 19 and 29% interest. Another e-commerce story, Twitter rolls out keyword search ads to all advertisers. Twitter rolls out this new ad unit, which is called Search Keyword Ads, allowing users to promote sponsored tweets in certain search results to a wider audience. Twitter is introducing a new ad unit called Keyword Ads, which allows advertisers to pay for their tweets to appear in search. Okay, so I already said that. Keyword ads are similar to promoted tweets, but with the added benefit of appearing for certain hashtags or certain words. These keyword ads can be a significant revenue generator for Twitter as well, which is something the company needs right now. I think we recently learned that their ad revenue is down something like 40%. We keep hearing about New York City crime and just kind of crime overall. Apparently, a Fox News meteorologist was beaten bloody on a New York City train the other day. Apparently, what happened, some teens were beating up an old man and even set his hair on fire. This guy stepped in to try to kind of protect this guy. The teens turned on this guy, beat him black and blue. I might have had a broken jaw. I know he had black eyes, fat lip. The kids weren't even arrested. They were questioned by police and let go. This happened at 1:30 in the morning. Like, what are 15, 17-year-olds doing out at 1:30 in the morning on a school day? Yesterday we talked about how New York City is locking up their ATMs because people are robbing them, damaging them, or homeless people are sleeping in the vestibules. Where we just kind of continue to see quality of life get worse and kind of crime go up. Arizona lawmakers are pushing a bill to make Bitcoin legal tender. Here's some interesting news. Trump was reinstated on Facebook and Instagram after being suspended for 2 years. Facebook says I thought I kind of laughed at this. Facebook says it's important everybody has a voice, and social media platforms shouldn't be censoring people, right? Like they censored the Hunter Biden laptop story. I mean, they censor a whole bunch of stuff. They push certain narratives. They push a lot of propaganda. But Facebook realizes the importance of open and free dialogue, and that's why they are letting Trump back on, albeit with guardrails. Chevron stock surged in after-hour trading yesterday after announcing a $75 billion buyback. And we've been seeing a lot of this. The oil companies are basically giving a big middle finger to Biden. Biden had previously said, my message to the American energy companies is this. You should not be using your profits to buy back stock or for dividends. Now, not during a time when war is raging. Well, all these companies are ignoring Biden and continuing to issue dividends and buy back stock. And I'm actually kind of bullish on energy stocks like Chevron, Exxon, and others. The move to ban TikTok is picking up steam. I think at this point we're over 25 different states that have banned TikTok on government devices and/or are suing TikTok. A bill was recently introduced to ban TikTok on all devices in the USA, and I'm fairly certain that at the very least, TikTok is going to be heavily regulated this year. Very possible that TikTok could be banned entirely. Apparently, cold weather is coming. There's an Arctic blast on the way, and most of the U.S. will be hit with some cold weather next week. It's actually been a pretty mild winter. I know Texas is expecting some cold weather. If that winds up knocking out the gas and oil refining down there, you'll likely see gas prices go up about 50%. I think gas prices already are up about 12-15 cents over the past week. A German foreign minister or chancellor, they said the quiet part out loud. They said yesterday in a speech, they said, we are at war with Russia and we shouldn't be infighting with other European countries. It's no longer we're just giving weapons and money. Germany has essentially announced they're at war with Russia, and I believe now Putin is threatening to send a nuke at Germany. This whole thing is such a joke, right? We should just give this up at this point. And then I don't know if you guys saw this last week. Joe Rogan was ranting about the new food pyramid. The new food pyramid says that Lucky Charms are actually healthier than steak. And Biden's dietary expert, Dr. Fatima Stanford, claims that obesity has nothing to do with self-control. It's a brain disease. She said willpower doesn't exist. Obesity is a brain disease. Genetics cause it, and if your parents are overweight, you're 50 to 85% likely to be overweight as well. It's kind of funny if you see these memes of like a beach in the 70s or 80s versus the beach today. Back then, almost everybody was fit. Today, almost everybody is fat. A perfect example of this. Remember, if you guys ever watched Seinfeld, George Costanza was the fat character on Seinfeld, right? Like George Costanza back in the late 80s, early 90s was considered to be obese. If you look at George Costanza compared to people today, George Costanza is basically your average American. Most people are much, much fatter, much, much more obese. Why could this be, right? Like people have always had similar levels of willpower. Maybe it's all the corn syrup and all the slop that we're eating today. But anyhow, guys, that is the last story of the day. Do me a favor. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below and ring the bell. As always, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, comments, opinions on anything and everything we've discussed today. So drop them down below. And I think that's everything, right? I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later, guys. Peace.